Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Robin, and today we're going to go through a tutorial on how to make these super duper cute toddler overalls. I designed these for my little guy Ollie here, and they're super comfortable and cozy and perfect for the fall weather that I really hope is going to come to Texas sometime soon. Before we get started, I want to just ask you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'm a tiny little YouTube creator and I only have 48 subscribers right now, so it would be awesome to get your help and reach that 100 subscriber mark. And without further ado, let's get started on making these overalls. This is a really easy tutorial. There's not very many pieces to the pattern, and I made it with a knit fabric, which I'm gonna just be real, it's not my favorite fabric to work with. Wovens are so much easier and more predictable and more manageable, but this is a toddler outfit and I really wanted it to be nice and stretchy and comfortable for Ollie, so that's what I went with. And I found this super duper cute fabric. Look how cute this is! Little raccoons all over it. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the cuff portion of the leg. You should have two pieces here, and I cut them from the outer fabric. That's also what I put in the instructions. But if you wanted, you could do this in some sort of contrasting fabric. What you'll want to do is with each of these pieces, you're going to fold them in half, hot dog style, and then we're going to sew along the long open edge right here and here. Alright, now that we've got that done, set those aside and you're going to grab your two biggest pieces. That's the front body piece and the back body piece. These two were cut on the fold, so right now it looks like two halves of a body, but this is a double layer. And you're going to put them together, right sides together, and line them up along the inner leg. Take your time to line them up so that they do match up really, really well. And then pin and sew along the outer leg all the way up and down. Now I sewed these together with a zigzag stitch, and then because I don't have a serger but I wanted to have my seams finished, I used an overcast stitch to clean it up a little bit. Next, you're going to take your pant cuff and you're going to line it up right sides together with the edge of the leg. Pin it and sew it, and then iron it straight down, and do the same thing with the other leg. Alright, so next you're going to fold these all back together and you're going to work on lining up the outer leg because that's the next part that we're going to sew. You can see that my cuff kind of overlaps and is a little long. You can trim that. And you'll be sewing all the way up to where the armpit is on both sides. When you're done, it'll look something like this. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the legs. Now we're going to set this aside and start working on the torso portion of the overalls. First, we're going to do the straps. You should have 4 pieces here, 2 for each side, or each strap. And you're going to put these together, right sides together. Not wrong sides together, Robin. And you're going to sew on 3 edges. The one edge that we're not going to sew is going to be the wider of the narrow edges. Do not sew there because we are going to turn these inside out. And you don't have to worry about finishing these seams either with an overcast stitch because we're going to be turning these inside out. Now take your fabric shears and you're going to trim the corners. And then turn them inside out. It should be fairly easy, and if you're using a woven fabric, it'll come out looking much cleaner, much nicer. The knit fabric kind of stretches a whole bunch. If you do need to get those corners to be nice and inverted, you can use something blunt. I'm using a knitting needle here, and you can get those corners turned out pretty easily. Next, we're going to move on to our lining fabric. I cut these out using the same fabric that we used for the outside, but you can use an accent fabric if you want. I would not recommend using a woven fabric if you're using knits on the outside, so just stick with something that has about the same stretch as whatever you've got on the outside. Put these together, right sides together, and you'll notice that on the top here, they are different shapes. That's a-okay. And you're going to sew along both of the sides here. Don't worry about finishing those seams either, because this is going to be turned inside out. Nobody will ever see those seams. Now we're going to start putting the entire garment together. So you're going to take the main body piece and start inverting it, start turning it inside out. And this is when you can start to get really, really excited, because you'll see how cute it looks. Look at this adorable leg. Lay it out nice and flat, right sides out. Be proud of yourself. And then this is where it gets kind of tricky. Lay this down on the surface in front of you, and then you're going to slip it into the lining, right sides together. Line these up pretty well. You're going to need to sew all of the top edges, and just take your time making sure that everything is lined up really nicely. This is also where we're going to add those straps, so just pay attention here. It gets a little fiddly. What we want to do is make sure that when the entire garment is inverted, that the straps don't have an extra seam that we can see on the outside. So we're going to slip them inside so that when we stitch everything together, you don't see anything extra. Put it inside between the lining fabric and the outer fabric and pin it really well. I like to do one pin on the left side, one pin on the right side, and one pin in the middle, just so that it's really nice and secure. And then go ahead and repeat that on the other side. And this is what the straps look like. They're crossed underneath in between both of those layers of fabric. Continue to pin it all the way around, and then you're going to sew it all together. Just be mindful of where those straps are while you're sewing so that they don't get stuck in any of your sewing. And then you have this. Next, we're going to take our fabric shears once again, and you're going to cut notches around anything that is curved. Do this all the way around the front and the back, wherever it's curved, so around where the arms would come out. And then you get to turn it inside out and start to get really excited because you're almost finished with your project. Alright, there's what the straps look like floppy rabbit ears. And here's the front. Shouldn't have any problems turning out those corners, but if you do, you can use that blunt something. I don't know what you want to use, like a pencil eraser, or I use the knitting needle. That's not super duper sharp. Okay, now we're gonna set this aside and we're gonna grab a contrasting fabric that is woven. So traditionally, when you're doing buttonholes, you're gonna wanna use some sort of interfacing, but I don't have interfacing, and within this pattern, I'm avoiding it. So I'm gonna teach you how you can as well. It creates like a little bit of a rustic feel on this piece, and I like it because it's a little kid's pair of overalls. I'm all right with it looking a little rustic. So I cut 2 squares of white fabric. They don't have to be exact squares. They don't even have to be exactly the same size, but you want them to be around 2 inches by 2 inches. And then next I have to pick out my buttons. I've got this jar of buttons that belonged to my husband's grandmother, and it's just full of whatever buttons she had collected from thrift stores or from garments that lost buttons. So I'm going to dig through here and find 2 buttons that I like for my pattern. And I chose these 2 buttons that look like they're kind of sage green / gray colored. Those would work perfectly for me. And I'm going to grab my buttonhole foot from my sewing machine, slide this button on in there, and then using my sewing machine, I'm going to fold these 2 white pieces in half and then make buttonholes on those white pieces. There we go. This is what it looks like. And then using my fabric shears, I'm going to trim it so that there's only about 1/4 of an inch around the entire buttonhole. Then I'm going to pin it to my garment, and using a zigzag stitch, I'm going to sew this right onto the front. I think it looks really, really cute. Check it out. Look how cute that is. Okay, so now I'm going to rip those buttonholes up. I like to put a pin at the top of the buttonhole, and then using a seam ripper, I just rip right in there, and that piece of woven fabric really stabilizes everything so it's nice and easy. There's one buttonhole, and here's the second. Just make sure to be really slow when you're pushing through so you don't stab yourself or rip any of the stitches. And lastly, we're going to add these 2 buttons on. So sew those on, and you're done. Well, mostly done. The only thing left for this garment is that I need to sew down the lining on the inside of the overalls, and I do that by hand, so I'll probably do that this evening. But other than that, we are finished. It's time to go chase down the toddler and get him to try this thing on. Hey Ollie, what do you think of your new overalls? Hey Ollie, can you show me your teeth? Ollie, can you show me your tongue?